Welcome. It's the Bring Your Work show. My name is Damon Brown. I come to you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. Let me get you guys situated on Amazon Live. Usually takes a second or two, but we'll go ahead and get you going. There we go. Beautiful. Welcome, Amazonians. No disrespect to Wonder Woman. Welcome, Amazonians, folks over on Amazon. If you're my people over at LinkedIn, shout out to you. And the people on the original YouTube channel, which now has a link down here, youtube.com/Brown Damon. I just had my coffee, so forgive me for just waking up over here. This is the Bring It Worst show. I come to you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard. I'm sorry, 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. I just changed the time. We're 2.5 years into this journey, and I changed the time because some of y'all are international. Some of y'all folks, which is why I have all the captioning for. Man, I think the show has captioning for average episode has captioning for about a dozen and a half languages, and y'all are using them. So if you know my work, if you know me personally, you know I very much consider myself a citizen of the world. So thank all of y'all all around the world. That's one of the reasons why I push the time to 1:11 Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time, which is where I'm based, so I can connect with more of y'all live, and y'all are coming through. I appreciate it. It's a Bring Your Worst show. 1:11 Pacific Standard Time. I'm still getting used to it. Forgive me, folks. If you want to subscribe, it's free. It's totally free to you. You can click the link below, or you can type in youtube.com/Brown Damon, and there's a big red subscribe button on the top right. And there's also my videos and all that stuff. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can just hit the subscribe button right over here. Finally got the angle right. And you can learn more about how you can be your best side hustler, your best solopreneur, your best what I call non-traditional entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur for a long time. I've been an independent freelancer, independent consultant, independent editor, independent publisher, independent founder. I founded 2 companies. Yeah, just going. And a lot of these methods and all these things in the toolbox are passable. And so what I learned from being a freelance journalist for Playboy, the New York Post, and those folks applied really well to when I started writing books, including some of the bestsellers. Some of y'all got them. The most recent book, Career Remix, Get the Gig You Want Based on What You've Got. And then taking the skills from that and becoming a public speaker. I've done 4 TED Talks and so forth. And then taking that and becoming a startup founder twice over, once on my own, second time as a co-founder. We ended up selling the second company, bootstrap both of them, which means we did it all on our own. There's basic tools that I try to communicate in my books. Is why I started the show. Again, we're 2.5 years in, and really trying to pass on this information and say the tools from this apply to this. Career Remix is a big example of that. I try to highlight that in the book, where a lot of you are trying to get to another type of career, another type of area. As I say, basically the tagline, the job is theirs, the career is ours. In other words, you take your stuff with you. You take, again, the skills that you've got with you, no matter what situation you're in, no matter what happens to you. We all have challenges. We all, frankly, have trauma. That doesn't take away the skills and the insights that we have, nor more importantly, what we have to give to the world. And so that's the main goal of the show. Again, we can come to you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Monday and Fridays are recorded shows or traditional episodes, usually like 5 to 10 minutes long, except for special episodes. Wednesdays are dedicated for live shows. So when possible, I come through, do a live show for y'all on different topics and answer all your questions and share as much wisdom as I can. Today, it's an important one. Make profit without social media. Um, the title is great. I think I like the title. Um, it also represents something bigger than just profit. It also means a livelihood. It means you can, excuse me, I have a wife and 2 kids. Sound like a stereotype now. I have a wife and 2 kids. And so, being able to help feed them, being able to be my best self, being able to show up for y'all and serve in my particular way. Again, if you start watching the channel, I'll share some of the adventures I've had from some of the more unusual books that I've written. I'll leave it at that. And finding audiences for that, to the startups that I've done, which were, in my opinion, very different and very They were not mainstream. I'll be kind about it. They were not mainstream, but they found y'all. And some of them became really big hits. But that's because I had a particular vision. Not getting as involved in social media now actually helps you protect that vision, because there's lots of theories, from echo chambers where you end up saying something and you're only connected with other people who believe the exact same thing, to the vitriol that happens. My subscriber base has grown up a lot since the beginning of the year for this show. So it's like, so now I'm part of the thing I'm doing is moderating and working with community. And so that becomes a discussion. All those different things happen within these spheres when you get involved with, frankly, the internet or things related to it, things on top of the internet. If you're able to build your business and make an impact without relying strictly on social media, then you have the opportunity to blossom. And it's not necessarily that you're protected or that you're not involved as much. It's just it doesn't dominate your time. And so it doesn't mean that you need to leave Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or any of the things that you're on. But I want to show you alternatives that I end up doing myself with my own journey. And I'll get into this a little bit more later in the show. I actually left social media platforms about 3 or 4 years ago. In fact, I spent a whole quarter, so 3 months, I want to say winter of 2019. That sounds right. Winter 2019. So a few years ago. And I got off of all social media platforms because I want to connect with my community more. The craziest thing happened. The first week, of course, was super uncomfortable. There was no Facebook, no Twitter, no LinkedIn, nothing. And I told everybody, I was like, I'm going to be offline. So I told everybody. But the other crazy thing that happened was that suddenly I had to connect with people. This is before the pandemic. So I was connecting with people in person. And I was texting folks, being like, hey, because I'm a business coach. I was like, hey, how can I support you as a coach and so forth? And that level of intimacy as far as connecting to people went up. And so did my profit. And I can't remember the numbers, but it was staggering. I was like, I thought I'd be losing money this quarter. I'm actually making more money. Now I end up getting back on social media. And then about every year or two, I'm leaving one of the major social media platforms. First one was Facebook. I'll get into that in a minute. And I've left some of the other platforms. Let's get into it, though, because there are so many different ways that you could actually build community without having to depend on social media. This became a topic. I was planning on talking about something else. And then an old colleague and friend of mine, Casey Newton, ended up having this breaking news, pun intended, about how a single engineer, let's pause for a second. If I had an infographic with a stop sign, I would put it right here. How a single engineer, just one person, and one individual like you or like me, brought down Twitter on Monday. Read that again. How a single engineer brought down Twitter on Monday. This Monday, just like 48 hours ago. An engineer made a decision, and because of the rough condition, I'm being kind here, that Twitter's in right now, they're able to do the proverbial flip of the switch like they do in the cartoons or in the bad action movies, and suddenly everything shut down. I went onto Twitter on Monday and I couldn't see any images. I thought I needed new glasses because my eyesight isn't that great. No, actually, all the images on Twitter were broken. No one could see any images. So as I talked about in my newsletter, you can join at joindamon.me. If you had a product launch on Monday, Apple was talking about new products this week. No one could see their images. If you were dependent on social media, that's too bad. Is that the position that you want to be in? Excellent article. It gets into that. I will not belabor that because Casey does an excellent job. Good job as always, Casey. I love your work. Be sure to check it out. The link is down below if you want to read it after the fact, or if you want to open up another tab and read it right now, if you're one of those multitaskers, which you don't want me multitasking, right? All right. Let's get into the questions. The lines are open, by the way, so feel free to drop in the comments if you have any questions or commentary, whatever. Did you have a product that you try to launch or something you're trying to get out there, and suddenly you realize that social media wasn't going to help you? Like, what's really good? Tell us what's going on. All right. The first question, Thank you for your patience with the new format. I'm still getting used to it. Let me go ahead and get rid of the first things first. Speaking of technology, it is inescapable. So let's keep it a buck. Let's keep it 100. It is inescapable. That's one of the reasons why I embrace it so much. All right, that's much easier. I'll try to make the text better, bigger in the future. Why shouldn't I rely on social media? It's a question I get a lot. It's like, well, social media is great. That's how I connect with consumers or customers or whatever term you want to use. I call it the people that I serve. That's how I connect with them. That spigot, I look at it like a faucet. That spigot could be turned off at any moment. At any moment. An excellent example, again, is, and I'll throw the link back up here so you guys can read the article. An engineer, it sounds like they screwed up. An engineer screwed up at Twitter, and suddenly no one had their pictures. And that went on for, I think, the whole day. I had checked in about once an hour. They're still wanting your pictures. So I think most of the, if not the whole day. Do you want to be dependent on that? So your 4-figure, 5-figure, God forbid, 6 or 7-figure business, and you're like, oh no, I get my customers through Twitter. No. Facebook is the way. It's the wave. No. Instagram, people DM me, and that's how I sell my products. Woo. What happens when something like this happens? You suddenly can't reach your customer. The reason I bring this up is that this is not a new phenomenon. As you can tell by the gray hairs, I've been around the block a couple of times. This stuff was happening back when I lived in Silicon Valley. I lived in Silicon Valley more than a decade ago. I would say a dozen plus years ago, I lived in Silicon Valley. This stuff was happening then, except it was the end of MySpace. Except it was all these different platforms, which I'm starting to forget now. But this isn't a new thing. And if you rely on one particular platform, then you're in trouble. The analogy that I use with my coaching clients, it's renting versus buying. There's nothing wrong with renting an apartment or a condo. There's nothing wrong with buying a place. Like, I've done both. My family's done both. No judgment. So let's put the judgment out of that. But it's very similar to you talking about, I'm going to rent this place. And this is my house. This is my stuff. This is how things work, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going to paint the walls and all these things. But at any moment, right, your landlord can come and say, hey, you can't do that. There's a new rule. Or, hey, there's new stuff going on in the city. I used to live in San Francisco again. So it's like, I have vivid memories of this, where you have that conversation, or worse, you get like a letter. They don't even talk to you. And they're like, hey, your rent's going up 300%. So you're going to have to make some decisions. It's active at the end of your contract or your lease, which will be in like 2 months. So suddenly you're going from X amount of dollars to 3 times that. Or more intense situation, they go and say, hey, good news, bad news. Good news is that I made a bunch of money. It's not like a Geico commercial. I made a bunch of money because I just sold this building. The bad news is that the new owners are actually going to turn into something else that is not within your demographic or your capacity, or we're going to turn into luxury condos, whatever. So you can't live here anymore. That's what it's like to rely on social media. And anytime Mr. Zuckerberg, Mr. Musk, I always forget the Snapchat guy, but I can see his face. You know who I'm talking about if you're into social media. At any moment, it could be like, all right, yeah, we're going to change the algorithm. There's a new sheriff in town. We're going to go in this direction. Owning is saying, this is how I'm going to serve my audience. This is how I'm going to decorate my home. If I want to sell it or get rid of it, fine. If I want to burn it to the ground, I can do that and just raise it and then start over again. Or I can cultivate it and it can become something that's in my proverbial family for generations. That's the difference between building your business on social media and building your business outside of social media. What I've built, social media has nothing to do with it. It can't touch it. And I'm going to get into some of those methods in a moment. And yeah, thank you for your question, Stephanie. How do you use social media for your business, and when don't you use it, or rely on it. I feel so much pressure about the algorithms. Exactly. Exactly. So thank you, Stephanie, by the way. That last part is actually, I think, key to this conversation. You feel so much pressure about the algorithms. There's only one real algorithm, right? Right? That's the algorithm of the people that you're serving. That's it. It's not the algorithm of I'm on YouTube, so it's like, I understand, but it's not the algorithm of YouTube. It's not the algorithm of Twitter. It's not the algorithm of LinkedIn and all these things. It's the algorithm of your community. I'll give you a really simple example, and then we'll get into the rest of your question. My coaching clients tend to come in a lot just after the new year and towards the end of the year. And that's because they're driven individuals for the most part, like myself. I'm very ambitious. So a lot of people I coach tend to be ambitious. And towards the end of the year, you start to get that moment where you're like, all right, this is Thanksgiving here in the States, so November. It's like, all right, so what did I do this year? What did I do this year? At the beginning of this year, I said I was going to do this, that, and the third, and I got like half of one of those things done. I had a resolution of 3 things. I got a half a thing done, which I've been there before. I need support for that. And then vice versa. The new year started. It's February. Right now, I'm speaking to you in March. And then you look up and you're like, wow, I had these things that I wanted to do. And it's almost the end of the first quarter of the year. What am I going to do? So a lot of my work, from my books to the other things that I do, they're built around the algorithm, the rhythm, which you think about algorithm, the rhythm of my audience. So I cater to that. So my audience has really, especially on this YouTube channel, has grown up quite a bit over the past, say, 3-4 weeks since the beginning of the year. But that makes sense because a lot of the stuff that I talk about has to do with goal setting, has to do with being a better person as far as emotional intelligence, has to do with passive income, where a lot of us here in the States, we just turned in or about to turn in our taxes because our tax day is middle of April. And suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, this is how much money I made. And I could either be panic or joy, or you want more of it or whatever. So they're coming to me and saying, I need to watch Damon's show because I need to level up my stuff. So it's not so much about the algorithm per se of that particular social media platform, but the rhythm of the people that you're serving. Hopefully that makes sense. So when it comes to how to use social media for your business and when don't you use it or rely on it, that is a pretty broad question in a good way, because I think it's basically the whole argument of the show. And so I'm going to get into a couple ways where you can differentiate. It sounds like that's what you're asking, between those 2 buckets. So thank you for the question, Stephanie, for sure. Yeah, it's some good insight there for sure, as far as just how you frame the question. So I appreciate that. See if I can turn the ticker off. There we go. Like I said, getting used to the new technology. One place that you might want to start, get more insight, particularly with the question you just had, Stephanie, is I have an episode from about a year and a half ago called 2 Chainz, Seth Godin, and Minimal Viable Audience. 2 Chainz is a very popular rapper down in Atlanta. Seth Godin is a very popular marketer and leadership coach. Do not know 2 Chainz. And Seth came up with this concept of minimal viable audience. Minimal viable audience is, if we take it back to Silicon Valley, and I'll keep this as brief as possible, there's something called a minimal viable product, or MVP. It's basically this, almost like a prototype, that you get out to your audience so it's enough so that they can give you feedback to let you know you're going in the right direction. And then it's called iterating, which means improving, and you slowly improve that. My last startup, Cuddler, it was an app that connected people for hugs. A lot of stuff that we launched early on were MVPs, and it was enough to bring in literally hundreds of thousands of users. But that MVP was enough for them to know what direction we were going in. And then we rapidly improved it over that course of the year before we sold the company. So that's the process. Minimal viable audience is the exact same thing, except it's people. So it's saying, I want to build something that connects with what I call non-traditional entrepreneurs, people who are solopreneurs, people who are side hustlers, people who are doing things on top of the regular stuff that they're doing. So they might have a day job. They might be like me, where they have elderly parents, whatever they need to take care of, and or they have little kids, which I have little kids, et cetera, et cetera. How can I connect with literally one of them? Connect with literally one of them, and then build products or services for them. Literally one. Who identifies that? In marketing, they call that an avatar, but this is like a real person. All right, let me provide for them. I remember the first person I coached, shout out to you, you know who you are. And with working with them, I was able to level up my game. So that following year, I had a handful of people that I coached. The year after that, I think I had a few dozen. The year after that, I had hundreds of people that I coached. And that's the space that I've been in. But it started with one. This video is excellent as far as Seth's argument and discussion. I'm talking about it, but Seth is great as far as making it as simple as possible. 2 Chainz, the rapper, used this method, but he said it in a very different way. One of my favorite videos, one of my favorite episodes over the past 2.5 years. I think y'all get a lot of it. But Stephanie, it kind of addresses your question where it's like, where do I lean on social media and where do I don't? A more important one, and this is probably the most important video outside of our discussion right now, to watch, is really good to watch after. How to make money without Facebook. I'm calling Facebook out, but it doesn't matter with Facebook or whatever your social media of choice is. I talk about my experience of leaving Facebook, like permanently leaving Facebook. I think I left a handful of years ago now. I talk about this experience step by step and how my profits went like this, like hockey stick, as they say. Maybe it wasn't that dramatic, but it was very dramatic. And I was confused. And then it wasn't until I did this episode a few years after the fact where I was like, oh, I know what happened. I was leaning on, and this gets to, I get back into your question, Stephanie. I was leaning on social media to find my audience. I was leaning on the hashtags. I was leaning on the opportunity to go viral. I was leaning on the special sauce, the algorithm, the black box that nobody knows about. The engineers there barely know about it because it's been, you think about Facebook, it's been around for what, 15, 20 years? It's like engineer after engineer after engineer has messed with it. There isn't probably a single person, including Zuckerberg, who knows how it works. I'm relying on this, again, this black box, to take it to an airplane analogy. I'm relying on this black box. I don't know what's inside of it, but I know it works. But then what happens when it doesn't work? Or what if I'm relying on it, which is what I talk about in this video? What if I'm relying on it and there's actually 10x, as they say in Silicon Valley, 10x of what I could be doing? I could be doing a multiple of what I'm doing right now, but I'm relying on this secret system led by people that might not have my best interest in mind. I talk about that in the video, and hopefully that addresses some of the stuff that I brought up. Another book, ironically by Seth Godin, is called Tribes, that talks about this. I was just getting into Seth Godin when Tribes came out. I know his later books better, but this is considered a classic, and it talks about this minimal viable audience. Who is your tribe, right? You heard that saying? He was part of that movement. I want to say this is about 15 years ago. He was part of that movement where people talk about having a tribe. That was him, right? He was a genesis of that, or at least one of the genocide, if I'm using that correctly. And so, who are the people that you're trying to serve? How can you reach them? And how can you deliver what you need to deliver to them? Who are the people you need to serve? How can you reach them? And what or how did you want to deliver what you want to deliver to them? I want to reach non-traditional entrepreneurs, probably like yourself. I'm using my show, which is my IP, something that I own, something that no platform can take away, to connect with y'all. That's why I started this show 2.5 years ago. What I'm delivering is hopefully insight to help you get your business off the ground. And in this case, with our conversation, without having to rely on social media. If you can answer those 3 questions, you're good. And that middle question, how do I reach them? That's really the conversation for today, because that's where the work happens. But there's many, many different ways to reach folks. And I know there's some other questions that talk about that. All right. So here's another question that also came in. Excuse me. Sorry, the weather is changing here, as I can tell. So apologies for the throat. And so, do I need social media to bring in business? And that's piggybacking on what Stephanie was talking about. No, no, you don't. That's a beautiful thing. There's so many different ways that you can bring in business. You can connect with people in person, as I talked about, that minimal viable audience, that one individual, and building a relationship with them, and that one person becomes 3, kind of like a cell, right? That one person becomes 2. Excuse me, that 2 people become 4. Again, like a handful of years ago, I was coaching 1 or 2 people. Now I coach hundreds. That's because it's the focus of being with one person, serving that one individual. In person is great for that. Another way to do that is to actually communicate with people directly using text, using different types of phone calls. I don't know why I couldn't remember phone calls. Phone calls. That's a lot of what happened when I was talking about making money without Facebook. I suddenly couldn't rely on social media anymore. So I actually had to reach out to the people I was serving. Go figure. Some of that occurred through speaking engagements. I connect with people after the show or whatever. Some of that happened from me doing books. I did a lot of books during that period of time. I had just finished a 6-year run where I wrote 8 books. Each of those books is an opportunity to connect with new people, right? And so there's different ways to build things and connect with people. There's having a show, which is what I'm doing right now, to be meta for a second, not the other meta, but meta in the classic Latin term of it. But do you understand what I'm saying? There's a level of intimacy that you can build so that you do not need to bring in social media to get all your business going. And I think it's really important to understand that. So let's go ahead and break down a couple of the platforms here that might help you along the way. One thing that I use, and I talked about it briefly last week's episode, where we talked about how you can run your business without being online all the time. And so some of these items I actually talked about way more in depth last week. Be sure and check out last week's episode. You can always go to youtube.com/BrownDamon and then look up the episode from before. I can also throw a link in there in a second. Strikingly is a platform that allows you to build your website. And why is this important? It's important, as I talked about last week, because there's so many entrepreneurs, particularly pre-pandemic. Now it's becoming a little bit wiser, particularly since there's been so much funny business with Facebook and Twitter and other platforms. TikTok might get banned by the time you watch this rerun, like, right? At least here in America. Do not rely on them. That's my point. There's so much funny business happening. It's been happening, but now we're becoming more aware that people are like, oh, you know what? I should actually have a website. And it's not so much my generation, because I'm approaching middle age, but more the generations younger than me that like the internet natives, because I remember when the internet didn't exist. So it's like those internet natives, they're like, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and my website is facebook.com/BrownDamon. It's like, no, it's not your website. Again, you're renting. You just got yourself an apartment. Did you really want to do some serious construction there and make it your forever home? Or did you want to set up a forever home and then rent this place for a little while and then slowly migrate over to your forever home? A website is a forever home. It's not going to go away unless you don't pay the bills or you tear it down yourself. Strikingly is my favorite platform to build a website. It's not the same as Facebook or Twitter. It's not a social media platform. It's closer to Wix, Squarespace. I know there's other ones I'm forgetting, but y'all are familiar with those. Strikingly is different, excuse me, because they're really good at multimedia. And I'm into multimedia. So I have the show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. We're up to 320 or so shows at this point. I want to be able to showcase that on my website. I sell books and t-shirts. The Bring Your Worth t-shirt. You can barely see it based on my previous book from 2 years ago. The Bring Your Worth mug. All those things are available on my website. So you can actually have a sales panel in there. All that different stuff. It's a one-stop shop for everything related to the Bring Your Worth brand and my work as a speaker and so forth. Great platform to do it on. It works with multimedia really well. There's a link in there. It's an affiliate link, so I believe you actually get a discount on your first month, I think. But it's super affordable. I love it. Again, I'm a fan. Another platform that can help you connect with your audience is ConvertKit. If you get my newsletter, again, it's at joindamon.me. It's for free. It's every Wednesday at 5:55 a.m. 5:55 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I've been doing it every Wednesday for as long as I can remember. I want to say we're probably approaching 10 years now. It's been a long time. But it's a free service to y'all. Let you know when I'm going to be in your town. New episodes coming out. Hopefully some wisdom and to level up your toolbox. I do that through ConvertKit. Excuse me. ConvertKit allows you to organize all the people that subscribe to your newsletter, put them into different categories. So you can send certain messages to some, certain ones to the other. You can find out where your audience comes from. I have a quiz at buildfromnowquiz.com that'll allow you to learn your biggest creative resources. I also have, again, the show here at youtube.com/BrownDamon. I have a column at Inc. Magazine at inkdamonbrown.com. I have all these different, they call them funnels in the marketing world, but I have all these different entry points. ConvertKit will say, oh, this new person that subscribed to your newsletter, they really dug that Inc. column that you had. That's how they came to see you. So I'm even able to understand how effective my different ways of connecting with y'all are, right? So if way more people are not connecting to the newsletter through this TV show at youtube.com/BrownDamon, the Bring Your Worth show, and way less end up clicking on the link that's available on my Inc. column at inkdamonbrown.com, then I'll be like, oh, okay, maybe there's more of that audience that I'm connecting with the TV show compared to the Inc. column. So all these little details will help. ConvertKit is actually not free. Some of the services are free, but they're not as robust. I would definitely check it out, though, if you're looking to level up. I don't know if it's for starting a newsletter from scratch. Like, what I would actually recommend, and it's just kind of hitting me now, so follow me on this journey. If you're just starting a newsletter, just start a newsletter, which is how I started many, many, many moons ago. Literally just make a newsletter, something short that you want to give to the people you want to serve, and then just send them an email. BCC it, so you're not showing everybody else's email, and then just send it to them and get feedback. I did that for actually quite a few years. And then it got to the point where I had a few hundred subscribers, and I was all like, this BCC is getting messy. I had to send multiple emails because there's only so many things you can put into BCC. This is a little while ago. I'm sure it's got more sophisticated. Then I got to ConvertKit, and it's been great. So ConvertKit might not be your starter kit, but if you already are going in the direction of a newsletter, if you already have a bunch of followers, for lack of a better term, and people that rock with you, you might want to go straight for ConvertKit and start turning those people into people, again, that are coming to your home versus coming to your apartment. Last platform that I want to, and I'm calling these platforms, but I can't think of a better term. Last platform I want to highlight is StreamYard, which in a meta moment, I'm actually using them right now. And StreamYard allows you to live stream to all the different social media platforms. That's a twist you might not have been expecting. So StreamYard basically says, you can go on Facebook Live. I'm not on Facebook, but you can go on Facebook Live and be live with your audience. You can go on LinkedIn, be live with your audience. You can go on Twitter. It's kind of broken now, but you still be live with your audience. There's ways to do that. And obviously Amazon Live, shout out to Amazon. I'm connected with them. I'm live with y'all right now. But what if you want to do all of them? Suddenly, you can do all of them. And I'm connecting with 4 different platforms. 4. as we speak. 3, and then there's a couple stragglers, but at least 3 of them. I would say 4 solid. This allows you to do that. I don't want to give the current price because if you're watching in the future, then I'm going to be wrong. But it's fairly affordable, especially if you're doing regular, if you want to connect with your audience regularly through video, as I do. Again, I do it 3 times a week. It makes sense for me, right? That's a dozen times in a month. Ooh, that's 144 or so times a year. I did that math quick. Man, it's work. This helps. They help you with the work. Again, it's another affiliate link. I think you get a good discount with this one, so check it out if you're going in that direction. All right, and be sure and shoot over any other questions you may have. And I know there's at least 1 or 2 more on the chamber. I already answered this question. What do I need to build my own pipeline? Well, I just told you. So we can go over that again. The first thing I would recommend is having a website. Strikingly is my personal favorite. Building a newsletter, that's another way you can do it. You don't have to do all these. Let's be crystal clear. I was talking to someone over the last week or two, and I mentioned that I do the newsletter once a week, and their eyes kind of glazed over. And that's the way that I think of like all the YouTubers / podcasters like Pat Flynn or Casey Neistat, who got out of the game, but he was big when I first started watching YouTube, and they would literally do something every single day, like on video every single day, a podcast every single day. I was like, that just makes me tired. So if newsletters aren't for you, don't do a newsletter. I do a newsletter. I'm a professional writer, so me doing newsletters, it's not light work. It's absolutely work. When you join the newsletter at joindamon.me, you'll see the work I put into it. But it's like doing your reps every morning. It's like it's cool. It's cool. I'm not going to stress out about it. Newsletters are your thing. ConvertKit is an excellent choice. Finally, StreamYard, if you want to stream and connect with other people. One other thing I'd recommend too, which I mentioned in passing last week. I have people that dislike social media more than I do. Have great conversations with them. They're like, Damon, I can't leave social media. And I'm like, come on, like, get off the farm. Come on. They're like, no, I can't. It's like, why? And there's usually 1 of 2 reasons. Number 1, their community is so built on social media that if they leave, they're like only a small percentage of the community will come with them. So I need to slowly bring that community over. Or the other half, which a lot more people than I expected. When I told them I was leaving Facebook, again, I think it was like 4 years ago. When I told them I was leaving Facebook, they looked at me either confused or with a longing in their eyes, like they wanted to be me. And most of them, get this, most of them explained to me, and maybe you can relate to this. My business that I consult for, that my day job, whatever, requires me to be on this such and such social media platform. I can't leave Facebook because I'm posting social media posts for my client, and so I can't go. So I can minimize my time on it, but I can't go. This is the answer for you. It's Meet Edgar. I talked about them on the show a few times. Fantastic female-led company. Shout out to Laura. And what they basically do is you put in all your social media posts. Hell, you can put them in for the year, whatever. Put them all in there. And they handle, I think they just started doing TikTok. So all the major social medias. Put them all in there. And then you have 2 choices. You can either put them in a set calendar and say, this is going to go out on March 17th at 9 a.m. This is going to come out Saturday, blah, 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 at blah, blah, blah. Like, you can do that. So essentially, you're a media manager, as they say. Or, which is when I was using them a lot, this is how I use them. You put all your social media in there, and then you just hit roulette and say, post it at this time, post any of the social media posts here. When I was really hardcore with my ink column at inkdamonbrown.com, I still have 600 columns up there if you want to check it out. There's new content coming up there too, just to give you a heads up. my 600 columns, I'd have social media posts for all of them. And then they would randomly go out. When I first started the show 2.5 years ago, same exact thing. But if you think about it, if you create, I'm going to get into the content side now. If you create evergreen content, or if you have something like a book, or you have a webinar that people can purchase and replay after the fact, if you have stuff that's going to be valuable, say 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 years from now, it doesn't matter when people receive the message, correct? And in this case, get meta for a second, there's a lot more people watching the show right now than it was a year ago. So if I mention certain products or certain books or certain ideas, it's going to be a much bigger audience than it was when I was talking about the same stuff a year ago. Social media, if you have to use it, it's the exact same way. Do you not have more followers or whatever than you did, say, 2 years ago? You probably do, especially if you're active on there. Meet Edgar works miraculously because you do all this and you literally don't have to be on social media. Now, if you want to respond after you do a post, that part's up to you. But if it's just saying this book is available, or this item is available, or there's a resource for y'all, they can engage with you in different ways. Social media is just then a billboard versus it being the way that you connect with your customer, right? There's a subtle difference with that. Once I figured that out, it changed the game. That's why I was comfortable leaving Facebook, because I was like, oh, I don't need it anymore then. Because I'm connecting with my customers more one-on-one or on my different platforms that I own versus Zuckerberg and crew trying to find people for me, and they don't even know who I am or who I'm trying to connect with. They can't, because I own my own business. I know my people more than anybody else would. At least I should. You should too. So the homework ends up being creating this minimal viable audience, or finding the minimal viable audience. Not even creating one, finding them and figuring out who they are, how you're going to connect with them, and what you're going to deliver to them, and how you're going to deliver it to them. That's it. Answer those three. That's it. And suddenly the social media thing becomes a little bit less anxiety ridden. It becomes not about trying to, understand the algorithm or connect with more people by paying Facebook or whomever more money. It's like, no, it becomes, how can I build this for my audience? So that is it for today. Actually, I have some family to take care of, so I'm going to head on out of here. Hopefully the questions and more importantly, the answers helped you get to where you need to be. Stephanie, thank you so much for your question too. It really kicked off that second half of the conversation. It's a Bring Your Work show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1:11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Vegas time. I am tongue-tied today. You can subscribe for free. Go to youtube.com/BrownDamon, or just click the link below. All the products, all the items, all the episodes I talked about, every single link is below. If you're on Amazon, I think the link is still below YouTube. If not, feel free to click on the YouTube link and you'll get all those details. For everybody else, everything you need is down there. If you haven't subscribed, be sure and subscribe so you do not miss an episode. Until next time, remember, you can always bring your worth, and you can always build from now. Take care.